Welcome to TacosandGeeks.com. Justin and Sean here, and today we got something brand new for the channel, brand new for the site. You see me for a couple of years doing essential anime, and I have two more essentials on the way. Today we're going to be kicking off essential comics, and soon we'll be kicking off essential manga. But right now, today we're going to be kicking off volume one. We're going to call it volumes because most comics and graphic novels, some of them have various issues and things of that nature. So we're going to be kicking off Essential Comics with a comic series, a franchise that actually brought me back into comics. And this comic that we're going to be talking about today is a doozy. It's one of the most popular shows in decades. It was one of the most popular shows in its heyday. And Sean, you definitely know what this is because you're the one who put me onto this. The Walking Dead is our first essential comic. And if you do not have this series in your collection, it is a must. And I'm going to pass it to Sean first since he's the one that introduced me to this. Sean, how did you get into The Walking Dead?
Well, when I started, I had just started a job working for embedded advertisement, and I'm like around the we it was a startup company, so um, around the beginning of it, we really weren't doing much. So I decided this was the time because I had been out of comic books for a while. Like I wasn't reading anything. I was like, I need to start getting back into it. I'm working in the city again. I was like, I can stop by Midtown Comics. I can pick up some new stuff. I wanted to gradually get myself back into it. So at this time, like people were putting previews of comic books and new comics online. So while I was at work, I started shuffling through like, what's a new comic book? What's something I can really get into? So I come across somebody had put up the first like I think it was the first 5 pages of The Walking Dead online, and it might have been from a site with Robert Kirkman, but I think it was somebody was just putting it up talking about The Walking Dead. So I start reading. I read the first 5 pages. I was like, "Yo, this is amazing." So at the time, I didn't know The Walking Dead was 5 years ago. Like it had been already been on in a run for 5 years. So I leave. My office originally was on like Fifth Avenue in New York City. So I walk and I come across a comic book store, and I'm like, hey, do you guys have The Walking Dead? And he was like, you want an up to date volume or you want to read back issues? So he was like, we have paperbacks that have like 5 comics in one. So he leads me over and I see volume one, volume two, volume three. And I was like, how long has the comic been out? And he was like, oh, this started 5 years ago. So I'm like, oh, great. I'm 5 years behind. But I was like, let me get volume one, two, and three. And at the time, I just started working. And I'm like, okay, damn it. All right. I'm going to spend the money. I have a long train ride. My train ride home was like at least an hour. So I was like, this will be good for me to read on the way home. So I grabbed the first 3 volumes. Wasn't that expensive, but you're talking about like it was $10 a volume. I bought I think 4 volumes that day, and it was like okay, $40. I'm like, this better be worth it, or I'm gonna be pissed off. So I sit down on the train. I'm reading the first volume, and I could not put it down. I literally read through 2 volumes and had to pace myself because I mean I got these I have a 5 day work week. So it's Tuesday and I've already read through like 2 of the volumes on the way home. And when I got home, I didn't put the book down. So I was like, all right, looks like I'm gonna have to like my first check comes, I'm gonna have to buy the rest of the volumes to get into it. Now around this time when I had bought quite a few volumes to catch up with the series that was ongoing. So I think I caught the series probably caught up to the series probably about issue 66 maybe. I don't want to stick to the exact number because I'm not sure. I don't this is years back. So I finally catch up to it and I start reading the single issues and I'm so deep into it at this point. It's the only comic book I'm reading. I mean, I'm going to Midtown Comics and I'm just picking up. I think I might have picked up a few other things, but it was just Walking Dead, Walking Dead, Walking Dead. To my surprise, what was this? 2000, I don't want to say 2010. we have to look up when the Walking Dead series started because I remember we went to the very first Comic Con. Matter of fact, it didn't even debut at the Comic Con we went to. I think it was the year after the next one we went to. So what happened was the night, and I do remember it was a Halloween night. I remember the two things I was watching. The BBC was showing this really great zombie flick about like it was a zombie with Big Brother in it. I have to look it up. I know it's changed. The name has changed a few times.
It started in October 2003 and ended in 2019.
No. The Walking Dead series, the TV series.
Oh, the TV series.
Yeah,
not the comic.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, the TV series, they were premiering The Walking Dead on AMC, and I remember before there was a countdown. I was watching this British zombie flick to get in the mood because I think everything was a Halloween night thing. And
2010, because we went to the Comic-Con when they showed the first episode.
Yeah, well,
no,
we didn't see. Yeah, we saw a preview of the first episode.
Yeah, it was a preview of the first episode at New York Comic-Con.
Yeah, so I'm sitting there and I'm watching. I watched this. They played I think it started at 3:00. They played this whole zombie series, and it was good. So it got me ready for The Walking Dead, and I was not prepared for how good the very first episode was, everything that went on with it. And I'm not sure. I think that they showed the first episode. They might have showed they showed 2 episodes. Here's the thing that happened at Comic-Con. They didn't show us the first episode. They showed us episode 2. And it showed us in the middle of episode 2.
Well, yeah, when Rick was in the tank.
Yeah. And when it came to that, I was just like, okay, this is amazing. And as a fan, to be able to read the comic and watch the show, and they did a very good job the first 3 seasons, giving us what was in the comic, what starts off in the first comic, and changing things around, giving us different looks, not sticking exactly to the comic book story. And it was so well done that I got a chance to enjoy the comic book and I got a chance to enjoy the series at the same time and go to Comic-Con for those years to sit down in the hall. And lucky enough to get seats in there because by the time the second season came, this thing was full-blown popular. People were fighting in line to get in. Yeah. For us, wink, wink, we had an in with somebody in there that actually just got us in every time. But to just be a part of that was just amazing. To sit there year after year, and it was just that. To me, that was a time. It was a great time to be a comic book fan and geek. I was just it was all everybody would just look to you. I remember people were hitting me up on Facebook and everything yo, so what's going to happen next? Yo, bro, you got to tell me you read the comic book. And it was a great time to be a comic book geek at the time. So that was my introduction into it. I will say Walking Dead brought me back into comic books. If we ever do a DC episode on Essential Anime, the second thing...
Oh, Essential Comics.
I say, yeah, Essential Comics. The second thing that brought me into it was DC Green Lantern. And we'll talk about that if we come in.
That'll be coming down the line.
Yeah, how that also brought me back into the superhero comic book genre. But The Walking Dead really set that off for me. I mean, it really brought me back to my childhood and thinking of reading a great comic book, just getting into the story, being so invested into the characters. I mean, for me, The Walking Dead was it from 2010 on. It was just the it. We can get deeper into it another time about where I feel like it fell off, but that was it for me. But for you, Justin, what was it?
Well, for me, you're the one that actually, I remember you text me, it's have you read The Walking Dead? I was like, what's that? He's like, go to a comic book shop or I'll let you borrow. I think you let me borrow a couple of volumes and I got hooked on it. And for me, the reason why I made this volume 1 of, Essential Comics, this was one of the first comics where there was so much unpredictability when it came to the characters for me. Yep. Anyone can get it. Anyone can die. There was no holds barred on who can die. You get attached to characters and they're going to the next issue, or you see them turn into a zombie, or down the line their head is on a stake as an example for things.
Yeah.
You know, if you know a certain saga, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, or
folks.
some beloved characters get their heads beat in, and it's
Yes.
even more graphic on the TV show than it was the comic.
Yes, and you had the villains were like just talk a little bit of some of these arcs here. Of course, you had the first arc. You know, I like to call it the Shane arc because you know Shane was kind of the heavy antagonist at that time.
Yep.
And then the Governor, which I think was a lot of people's favorite arc of this entire comic book series. Just the Woodbury and just the prison arc for me. And it's way different than on the show because there's a lot of characters from the actual comic that didn't make it to the show. Like Tyrese's daughter was not on the show. You know, she had a whole suicidal pact that didn't turn out well for, you know, for her boyfriend. And Tyrese was just characterized a little bit different in the actual comic book. Then of course you had Negan, who's pretty accurate compared, you know, pretty accurate in on a TV show as well. And then of course you have the Whispers, and then you have the Hilltop Alexander. So I mean, just the way Robert Kirkman wrote this story and what made this so successful. It's not just the fact that anyone can get it. He wrote really slice of life human characters, like everyone, even your side characters, your supporting characters, everyone in there had a little bit of something. So even when people like you barely got to know, when they died, you still felt it. And you just like, you could not put this thing down. And then you add the success of the show. Like, this was a juggernaut in that mid 2010s, in that 2010 era, from 2010 to 2019, that 9-year run. It was just a juggernaut. And just based off, even with the comic books, like, I had a talk with one of my friends the other day because it was like, hey, do you recommend the black and white or do you recommend the color version? Honestly, I'm a purist. The black and white just has a little bit
hits you better.
It just has a little bit more of a ump and punch to it compared to the colored version of it. That's just like kind of watching a black and white film and then it getting colorized. Like, I can't watch I Love Lucy colored. I have to watch it in black and white. It just for some reason has a more feel for me. But I'm telling you, folks, if you have never, ever, a lot of you have probably seen the show, trust me, the comic book goes a lot more in depth with the lore, things that are changed, and sorry for the spoilers. Andrea's different compared to her show.
Tyrese was with Carol.
And
he was with Carol first, but and Carol doesn't make it through the comic book. No. She dies in the prison. Yeah, so it's a lot.
Carol's different. Governor is a little bit even more psychotic, but a lot of people kind of like the Governor, and I agree. I saw this video early on YouTube that the Governor on the TV show was a little bit more better characterization, more fleshed out, and that was Robert Kirkman's doing because there was a couple of regrets that he used the show to rewrite some of the regrets he did. Like, obviously, another spoiler, Rick in the comics, his hand gets cut off, and on the show, Robert Kirkman was like, that was a mistake. He corrected that on the show because he realized how hard it kind of was to write a character with one hand. Like, there's certain limitations now that Rick had to deal with. But, I mean, folks, overall, I don't want this to go too long, but The Walking Dead, you definitely have to pick this up, add this to your collection. I mean, it's 193 issues. But, I mean, of course, they had those big Umbius collections that you can just get like each arc in one book, so you definitely get that. And before we go, me and Sean gonna tell our favorite arcs from The Walking Dead. So my recommendation, not to be cliche, I'm torn, believe it or not, between the Whisperers and the Governor saga. The Whisperer saga was just, because Negan is just so charismatic and just complete asshole. But the Governor always has my heart. He was just one of I think the greatest Walking Dead villain. And I know a lot of people are Team Negan, and rightfully so, or Team Whispers, rightfully so. But there's something about that Governor Saga, that Prison Saga, that just really kind of sold it for me. So I'm gonna go with that.
Yeah, for me, it would probably be Negan and the Whisperers. I think the Whisperers maybe more because um, Negan was ruthless, and I think they made him way more ruthless for the TV show. So I think the
Mm.
TV show is what made Negan everybody's fan favorite. Um, but for me, the Whisperers were even worse. I mean, the thing is, I thought they were gonna mess that up in the show, but like, imagine discovering the zombies could take us in the comic book, showing you zombies could take a swipe at you and stab you,
Mm.
and they were talking and how they explained how they learned how to walk amongst the zombies and do what they did. So um, that would probably be my arc. Would be the Whisperers arc, but overall, the entire comic book was just every arc they went through, from the farm to when first meeting the governor, the entire prison arc, meeting up with that. You know, everybody knows the prison arc is where how they met up with Tyrese and everybody else. So that would pretty much be it for me. So I'm gonna go with the Whisperers arc if you're asking for my personal favorite. But the comic book overall was my personal favorite.
And this has been volume 1 of Essential Comics. Justin and Sean, if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Hit that notification bell, helps the algorithm out. If you're watching this on otakusandgeeks.com, browse our website, check out our editorials, check out our latest reviews, check out our on the channel or on the Tacos and Geeks, check out our recent interview with actor Matthew Lillard. He talks about his upcoming brand of Sandheg hide, which is a little critical role crossover there. So he makes Sandkeg, I should say Sandkeg hide, his new drink. So definitely check that out. And thank you for keeping it locked here. Volume 2 of Essential Animes coming up and coming soon. And Sean just alluded to what we'll be talking about. Going to get in a little bit more of the brightest day, blackest night. We'll see you later days.
Later.